Alright, quick update on the stays. I got them all stitched. I've gotten them all boned now. Around. They're all nicely boned, and I have them laid out so that I know what order they're going in. But now I need to fold all of that over like so, and probably trim just a little bit along some of my pencil lines to make sure that they're all the right shape, because currently they all still have that half-inch, not even in some spots, seam allowance that I no longer need. But they're closer. They're almost done. One thing about them though, they are super heavy. Like, holy crap. There's a good roll of spring steel in these. That's, yeah, those might be interesting to wear. Alright, so, like I said at the beginning of the video, I'm using spring steel for my boning, which will make it really heavy, but that's okay. I think I'm going to, no, I need to trim all the springs first anyway, but I've got some that are pre-cut because that's how I had bought them for Scarlet, for making my corset, and then I didn't use most of them. And I'd gotten more to make Allie's corset. They were all too short. So, here we are. I think those might get used for the shorter bits in like the tabs and stuff, because they'll be easier to cut and mess with than the others. But since they're metal, I have my metal cutters. I have a whole bunch of the little ends to put on, and somewhere here are my needle nose pliers to actually stay. So yeah. And for historical fashion, sitting on the floor to do this on a pillow, I really need a tailor's board. Basically, a tailor's board would be where garments of any kind would be made, because most historical garments are easier made sitting cross-legged, working from your lap. Tabletop working doesn't really exist until sewing machines, as far as we can really tell. At least that was Molly and I's guess the other day. Which honestly would make sense, because that would be the point in which you would actually, like, the machine comes in a table. You're going to start working from a table all of a sudden instead of what happened. Probably shouldn't cut those. Here we are. You're working from a table instead of your lap for the first time ever. But yeah, sitting cross-legged, you can use your knees as a third and a fourth hand and not have to iron as often. Not that ironing shouldn't happen anyway, but it doesn't happen as often when you are sitting like this. It's easier to move stuff around, and technically you are flat working everything. So what I'm doing now of working with one piece at a time instead of the entire stays put together and then boning it is flat working, basically. Which is a style of sewing that tailors use even today, because you can get things fitted better that way. You are working with one chunk at a time instead of everything at once. It's easier to move around, it's easier to work with. But yeah, from this point on, most of this will be done historically and by hand. I just, because I want to have these done before the end of the month, and I have zero patience to sit and hand sew another corset ever again, or another pair of stays ever again. Here we are, machine sewing instead, which probably means that Naomi has the only corset that will ever be done historically accurately, because I hand stitch every bit of that sucker. And it makes me happy to look at it because it looks really cool, but it also took me 2 years to get done. So, don't want to do that today.
And what brings you to Hamden?
Scarlet.
It's kind of a long story.
Hey.
Actually, I don't really know where to.
Hey.
I'm so
Are you
sorry,
hindering
that's
my
really
sewing?
business.
Hi.
What can I do for you, Logan?
Do you not like the sound of
I'm really here
the metal
because
being cut?
I came to see you. You
Dork.
see,
Alright, so since I haven't thought to actually sit down and video anything recently, and a lot of people have been coming through at work when I'm working on my stays more often than not, quick update for the end of this video here. This is what they look like now. Basically, found out pretty quickly that I forgot to cut the half-inch seam allowance out of every panel here. So I went through, I did that, and then I whip stitched everything down. Because I didn't cut out or cut off the half-inch seam allowance, all of the bones are a little long, so I need to go back through and trim all of those, but it's stitched together. You can see my tiny stitches right there. It's actually laying the way it should. There are 2 panels that I need to put on still of the back panels, but all of the yellow dots are going to be eyelets, and I can't do anything easily. So, well, I could definitely do this easier. It must be over there. I'm putting the eyelets in by hand because metal eyelets weren't a thing yet. I plan on wearing this on the outside of everything at the end of the month because we're doing laundry and it's going to be hot, I guarantee. So I'm not wearing the jacket for most of the day, probably. So I want it to at least look right. The next pair I make of these will be done entirely by hand because the absolute hell I was getting at work the other day for the machine stitch channels was aggravating and slightly disheartening. But nonetheless, we're getting there. Once I get the back panels done, like the dingbat I am, I already have these attached, and I need to put eyelets in the fronts as well because I am doing a front and back lacing pair at this point. Is that how it's supposed to be? How the patterns were written originally? No. Originally, the front panel was supposed to be just one solid thing and lace in the back like my corset. Not happening. I'm pretty sure I've made these a little too big around, but for a first pair, they'll work. It'll be fine. I just need them to work for 2 days. But basically, with the fronts like this, I have linen tape that I will put along each seam on the outside to kind of stabilize it a little bit more. I have my leather binding cut. I have just enough of it. I got super lucky because this is the same leather that I made my moccasins out of. And I made the moccasins before I knew how much I needed for these, like the dingbat I am. And I definitely don't have money for more leather. But before I put the binding on, I need to finish the back panel. Put the lining in, which is it'll make it look like this instead of this. Smooth it out. It's an easy piece to rip out when it gets super sweaty and gross. Because I have the lining pinned in on one side, I went ahead and pinned the leather binding onto the busk. So this piece is definitely going to be done by the end of the month. I don't know about the rest of it yet. But we're getting there. So yeah, that's my current update for this. Hopefully, when I go to put the back panels on, I will remember to do that. Hang on. Alright, we're good. Had to pull something out of Scarlett's mouth. But yeah, that'll probably be in part 3 of these videos. But because I rushed the last one, like, follow, subscribe, put ideas down in the comments if you would like to see anything different. I do not edit well, so these are super long videos and I apologize. But yeah, It's almost done.